We were thinking about how to start today in dedicating a new cemetery. Rabbi Sager pointed out that if we're going to think about the old cemetery, he put most of the people here. So perhaps good to take a moment and hear from him about a very special place and what it means to dedicate a new place.
To dedicate a new place, to expand an old place with a new kind of dedication. Let's say it that way. There will be new generations of members of this community who will not know new or old. They'll know upper gate, lower gate. They'll know one large address that collects stories. This is a place of stories. In Israel, every so often you will see a sign pointing towards a cemetery. And the sign always says, Beit Alamin, which is to say, the house of the hidden. Or else it means the house of the strong. Because the word Elem, which gives us the word Olam, which means world, Melech HaOlam, also gives us the word that means hidden, something beyond us, and it also is a word that means power. What does it mean to call a cemetery Beit Almin? The truth is that there is a lot here that is hidden. There's also a lot that's revealed. There's a lot of power. There are a lot of stories. I just made the circuit with Eileen Abramson to say El Malei Rachamim at the graves of many of the generations of that family, the Ornoff Abramson family. She couldn't leave her mother alone very long, and she sends her apologies for not staying. But her mother's 102 and isn't making the rounds at the cemetery herself these days, but sends her emissary, her daughter. There are lots of stories. I collected lots of stories just now. Herman and Sarah over here. Small people, she said, but boy, what mouths! Could they speak? There was power there, she said. Well, we all have our stories. There is a certain strength that comes from being here. There's a certain strength derived from being here. And now we're dedicating ourselves in an expanded way. Tell the stories. Get Bob Silver and his family and the next circle of 9 or 10 or 11, a baseball team's worth of cousins who have come to observe the morning. Get him and them to tell stories of the Silver family, the generations whose constancy is present here. 3 generations, I think. 3 generations here in this cemetery. The extraordinary stories that help to found the expansion from this part of the cemetery up the hill to this part of the cemetery that's going to be down the hill. Ralph? 2 days ago, I checked the 10-day weather forecast in Pichara. It's a town in the Ukraine where Ralph's family came from. Why did I do that? I didn't mean to. I wanted to see if I could find any images of the cemetery in Pichara. And I couldn't, but I found the 10-day weather forecast. So I can tell you that today, it's just like here. It's supposed to be about 81, not so high humidity, just like here. Well, perhaps you'll have something to say about that cemetery before we're finished today, when we move down the hill. But there is something that comes to my mind, and it'll make more sense when you speak, but a cemetery that is in some ways also a fortress. That is to say, we build a cemetery to protect the next generation. Go seek out the high ground. If you want to escape the danger, go to the cemetery. There is something there that about which you'll say perhaps a little bit more, but it's extremely moving and it's extremely present. That is exactly what is here. There is a way that in which this part of the cemetery protects us. And we are here at this time of the year, always on this Sunday between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because we want that strength. We want to be in the presence of those who remind us of lives well lived, of lives fully lived. Not that everybody is a tzaddik and not that everybody is so perfect, but these are lives that are finished. These are chapters that are done, that we carry on. We stand and we honor the routes that they took, those of which we know, the ones that we'd like to avoid and the ones that we'd like to imitate. And there's strength and honor in both of those. Beit Almin. Hidden? Yes. Powerful? Even more important. So here we are to expand that sense of self, or to be ready to invite that expanded sense of self. As it happens, as the rhythms of the world carry us, we carry the stories, and then we are carried by the stories.
So I remember one of my first introductions to Bethel was on this day. Not this day, but this day. I was spending a year in Israel and came back to spend my first high holidays with this community and was told, well, on Sunday you'll go to the cemetery. And it's the remembrance service, and the truth is I had never been to something like this before. And it was my first introduction not only to the service, but also to the community of people who were here that day and who are here today to remember those who are buried here, and to the community and to hear those stories. And to sometime, I remember Laura quickly gave me a cell phone number, and I was to call Yetta, who is now buried here, and Yetta would tell me the names of the people who we were remembering together. And it was an honor to be introduced to that community. I want to take a moment. Can you hold this for me? A rabbi with two shofars. So what is very clear to me, what became clear to me in that moment and is very clear to me today, is that this is not something that happens alone. It's something that happens in community. It's something that we all do together, and it's one of the things that characterizes the beautiful community that we have, that so many people participate in so many different ways, and each person gives of themselves the gift that they have to give. From placing stones to visiting, to making sure that things are taken care of, to being on the Chevra Kadisha, to making meals. Everything is something that we all do together. I'm going to share with you a list of the many different people who made today happen. It's probably incomplete, and so I apologize in the season of apologies and forgiveness. I apologize in advance, but here is just a partial list. First of all, of course, we didn't just have a stranger come and be our contractor for the work that you're going to see over there. The contractor was Prime Building, and the main person, I guess, who worked on it was Mark Robertson, and Mark is the son-in-law of Sid and Malvina Markman, the husband of Sarah, who designed the original main Moorhead gates, which you can see down there behind you. And I will tell you in advance, the gates for this cemetery as always, there's a good story. There's a good story. So we don't yet have the gates that will be at the entrance of this cemetery, but come back, you'll see them. They will be here, and they're going to echo the gates that are that you see on Moorhead Avenue. Ron Bartholomew, who helps us to create all of the tombstones. He was responsible for so much of the work that you're going to see, the concrete that was laid, the pedestal, the sculpture. Rob Emerson, who was our architect and who, God help him, worked with the city, was the liaison for getting permits and getting everything finally approved so that it would go through. Casey, who is a new member of our family, Casey Baker, our executive director, helped to steward this process. There he is. And we welcome you to the family. Gary Berman, we have a Geniza, an extra part of the cemetery that we will use for the burial of books and that we acquired almost at the last minute, and Gary helped us to steward that process through. We have our landscaper from the synagogue, Philip Nazo, and his group that helped us to prepare for today. And I don't know if Howard is here, but Howard Margolis' father, Sam Margolis, how many years ago, David, was it?
Had to be 25 at least.
At least 25 years ago, who spearheaded the process to make sure that we had this piece of property so that when we expanded, there would be a place for us to go. And we are standing on Sam's shoulders and on the community of people that he finagled with and worked with and cajoled and etc. to pull that together and to have that vision. And we should never lose sight of the gift that we have received from generations that have come before. I do want to say a thank you behind the scenes. James Tolsky did a fun trip to New York and lots of emails that have gone back and forth into bringing this together. And we're going to hear more from two very special families as we dedicate the cemetery. The Silver family, so many people here today. I'm going to read you an even longer list. Hold on. I asked Bob to provide this. The Silver family members buried in this cemetery. So I'm going to try and get everybody right. Harry Levin, Ida Levin, Frank Silver, Annie Silver, Herman Silver, Rosa Silver, that was great-grandparents, and grandparents, that's the second generation. Jack Silver, Sadie Goodman, Pat Silver, Jean Green, Phil Green, Louis Silver, Sylvia Silver, David Silver, Renee Silver, Megan, Alex, Logan, so many here, so many present in spirit and present here, and so many cousins, and that connection is one that we cherish. And Ralph and Renee and Judith and Amanda and Ted here from the Snyderman family, and we'll hear more about the Memorial Garden and the entire Bethel community that really came together, small gifts and big gifts that made this day possible. There are a lot of stories, and it's a big community and a big family. He hates this. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, David, for all of the work that you do. I'm going to be in big trouble later. Yes.
Clapper, it's appropriate.
The clapper, that's right, that's right. So here's what we're going to do. Our plan was to be over there, but it's very hot, so we wanted to do some of the talking now. But we asked this question, this is a Chanukot Beit HaKvarot. It's the inauguration of a Beit HaKvarot. What does that mean? the word Hanukkah, right, from which we get the holiday, it means specifically, Rashi says it means specifically to start using something for the purpose for which it was created. So you don't do a Hanukkah when you lay the first stone, when you dig the shovel in. Okay, that's not when you dig the shovel in to build a building. You do a dedication of a building when you start to inhabit the building. You do the dedication of a home when you put the mezuzah and you start to live in the home. Thank God today we're not doing a funeral. Okay? We're not doing the burial of a person, but we will begin to use the cemetery for the purpose for which it was created. And we will do that by burying books in the Geniza. And so we have two tasks. One of them is there are books. David, where are the books that people can collect?
By the front gate, the Moorhead gate in the new section.
So there, and we wanted to make sure that everybody, or as many people as possible, got to see the whole width and breadth of the new cemetery. So I would like to invite you to pick up a book and to walk from the gate and to walk the length of the cemetery. But before you do that, we want to also take some of this place, and as Rabbi Sager said, start to blend the old and the new. And we will do that. You are invited to each find a stone. Find a stone. There are stones on the ground. There are stones in some of the beds, some of the graves. There are stones scattered around. This is a time for gathering stones. And you should show up in about 10 minutes. You will hear the rabbis sounding the shofar again when we are going to begin with our dedication at the entrance to the new cemetery. But you should each have in your hands a stone, and you should have a book. If you can't, we don't have enough books, it's okay, but right, if you want, go get a book. And with that, not the two rabbis, but all of us will create another story and dedicate the cemetery that we have come to dedicate today. Did I forget anything? No? Okay. 10 minutes, you have your walking instructions.